Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. We finally hit 50 episodes, and if you've been listening to our podcast since that first awkward, clumsy episode back on March 27th, we thank you kindly. You know, not every sportsman or sportswoman wants to get their news and stories from press releases or social media posts. So hopefully this show has been a fun and informative way to learn about what's happening in your neck of the woods. If you would, let us know in the comments your favorite way to listen. It might be at work, dropping the kids off at school, or maybe even while you're skipping town or to go fishing or hunting. What's been your favorite episode so far? And what would you like to hear more about? Let us know or shoot us an email at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Today we got public comment opportunities for big game season setting, a deep dive into the state of deer and elk series, and a mountain lion in Pocatello. But first, if you're like me and have never tied a fly to save your life, but have always wanted to give it a shot, now's your chance to get your toes wet while utilizing some leftover wild game materials from hunting season. Already, you might be thinking, why on earth would I want to try tying my own flies when I can just go down to my local fly shop and pick up a dozen for pennies on the dollar? Hey, you're not wrong. After all, pretty much any sporting goods store or mom and pop tackle shop are going to have more flies than a county landfill. But that's not the point of this story. While rummaging through the trays and trays of pre-tied midges, caddis, woolly buggers, and stimulators might be a stress-free way to fill your fly box and maximize your time on the water, I want to explore alternative ways to source our flies, take advantage of the winter lull, and perhaps become a keener fly angler. First things first, your first attempts probably won't be pretty. Fly tying is a true art form, and it takes time and practice to become proficient, so simply skimming this article and maybe a YouTube video isn't going to help you cut in that line. Second, before you start filling up your Amazon cart or cutting up your bear rug for tying materials, I want to be clear. We're not going to tie award-winning elk hair caddises today, or take out a second mortgage buying every fly tying tool known to man. The point is simply to have fun, dabble in a new hobby, and, if we're lucky, catch a few fish. Our flies may be ugly, our patience may be thin, our eyes squinty and clouded, but at the end of the day, there will be one fly, maybe even more than one fly, nestled in your fly box, made using leftover wild game materials that we can be proud of. Now that we got that out of the way, it's time to put together a modest shopping list. Emphasis on modest. Like most art forms, fly tying can be as simple or as extravagant as you want to make it, and can lead you down an overwhelming road. For the sake of tying a couple homely flies made from the scraps of hunting season, let's just take baby steps. First and foremost, you'll need a vise, and probably advice. As the name implies, a vise clamps the hook while you wrap it with material. Vices can come in a variety of styles, including C-clamp and pedestal-mounted vices, but all pretty much do the same thing. Once you have a suitable space picked out at home, like a desk or a well-lit table, make the call on a vise that best fits the space and doesn't break the bank. Next up, you'll need a few tools. A quality pair of scissors made for fly tying, a bobbin, which holds the thread while you wrap the hook, a hair stacker, a small device that quickly aligns the tips of hairs such as deer and elk, and a whip finisher, which will help you finish off the fly by tying the final knot. You can also spring for a starter kit for fly tying with all the basic tools and some tying materials for about $50. With your tool belt now metaphorically tied around your waist, it's time to shop around for materials to lay the foundation for your first fly. Now, just like with regular old bait and reel fishing, hooks come in a plethora of options. Our flies are going to be simple, so the hooks should be too. For the sake of these bare bones wild game flies, pick up several nymph hooks about size 16, dry fly hooks size 14, and a couple streamer hooks size 4 or 6 for that woolly bugger. Thread is also going to be a must-have for your beginner fly tying station. If nothing else, a hook wrapped in some colorful yarn, wire, or thread stands a pretty good chance of attaching itself to a curious fish's lip. Thread is by far the cheapest option on the list here, which gives you all the reason you need to pick out a dozen or so colors if you so choose. Chances are they'll get used eventually. However, if you want to continue the theme of keeping this endeavor close to the ground, it's recommended to have common colors, including black, red, brown, olive green, whites and grays, and tan in stock. Last but not least, you may want to scoop up a couple of bead heads, especially for those chunky woolies. Bead heads are weighted little spheres that slip over the point of the hook and sit behind the eye. Bead heads give the fly a little added heft to get the fly down in the water column and can add some flash to attract a strike. Alright, now it's that point in the training video where we finally get to do the thing we've been talking about doing, tying flies. And there's no better feeling than catching a fish on a homemade fly made from some animal you harvested back in the day. And if a couple of buddies are around to see you do it, oh, even sweeter. And let's get real for a moment here. Those beautifully tied dry flies or streamers that look like feathered sculptures are certainly eye-catching to the angler. However, many fish are caught on sparse, drab, simple flies that resemble a bug enough to whet their appetites and trigger a strike. Even the most beginner of fly anglers will have heard of such classic flies as a hare's ear, or the elk hair caddis, or the pheasant tail nymph. They are tried and true, have fooled millions of fish, and have long, rich histories being crafted from the same critters that give them their names. Elk hair, for instance, is sturdy and durable and doesn't flare out like lighter materials such as feathers or deer hair. The thick hair makes great tails and wings on certain flies, particularly caddis and mayflies. Pheasants, on the other hand, are like the rodeo clowns of the upland bird rodeo. They're some of the most colorful game birds found in Idaho, giving a fly tyer a broad palette to choose from. The first pheasant tail nymphs were tied back in the 1950s to imitate mayflies found commonly in English streams. The version we've all come to love here in the States stemmed from a Montana man named Al Troth, who also happened to be renowned for his elk hair caddis. For some of you, sourcing deer or elk hair, pheasant or chucker feathers, or duck and goose down might be the sticking point. There are plenty of anglers out there who don't hunt, and that's perfectly okay. Talk to your buddies that do hunt and see if they have any tanned hides or feathers left over, or have been holding on to for years, unable to make do with them. Now, describing to someone who's never tied a fly every minute step via written story would be as monotonous as John Roebling describing how he built the Brooklyn Bridge. And considering I've never tied a fly a day in my life, it would be selling you, the listener, a bill of goods. The good news is we live in an age where activities like fly tying are widely accessible and have a wide network. Online diagrams and videos, dusty old library books, and even classes hosted by your local fly shop can all be valuable resources available in a moment's time. Anyone who's ever enrolled in the University of YouTube knows this to be true. Even a quick Google search yields dozens, if not hundreds, of web pages dedicated to tying EHCs and pheasant tails. You might have to do a little more digging, though, to find black bear woolly buggers. Tying your own flies doesn't just have to be that thing you'll maybe try in retirement. In a modern world that seems to be spinning faster than we'd like to at times, sitting down at the fly desk to tie a few meticulous little bugs of thread and hair might be just what the doctor ordered, too. Again, not to sound like a broken record here, just have fun with it. And start easy. Remember, we don't jackknife into a prime fishing hole. We tiptoe out into the shallows at first. Then, if all seems right, we throw some flies. Maybe even some ugly, homemade ones. For more on tying flies from wild game materials, hit the link below to check out my story on our website. All right, buckle up. Big game season setting is here once again. Comment period for big game season proposals is now open. We'll be setting new big game seasons for deer, elk, pronghorn, black bear, wolf, and mountain lion in March. Hunters, you can comment on season proposals now until February 23rd. Hunters can easily check out the proposals on the big game season setting webpage at idfg.idaho.gov/comment. Just hit the link below. Big game seasons will be finalized by the Fish and Game Commission during its March 26 meeting in Boise. The application period for big game controlled hunts runs May 1st through June 5th. The public comment process is also including meetings hosted at Fish and Game's regional offices at the time and dates listed in full on our website. Way too many to rattle off here, so hit the link for this story if you're interested in finding a public meeting near you or just want to weigh in on a few topics that pertain to you. That's all for that one. Let's head down to Pocatello for this next story. On the morning of February 4th, Fish and Game personnel lethally removed an adult female mountain lion from a Pocatello residential area. A homeowner in the Johnny Creek area in South Pocatello reported that the mountain lion had killed 2 pet goats in proximity to his home, prompting Fish and Game's action. Our wildlife biologists addressed conflicts with mountain lions and other wildlife on a case-by-case basis, making final decisions based on a variety of factors. In this case, the mountain lion was euthanized because it had been frequenting the homeowner's property and killed 2 pet goats. However, there have been times when circumstances have allowed for relocation, as was the case with the mountain lion discovered in a North Pocatello neighborhood last April. Many Pocatello and Chubbuck neighborhoods are built in the urban-wildland interface shared with various species of wildlife, including mountain lions. Yet, reports of mountain lions in or around town are fairly infrequent, and conflicts like this are super rare. For tips about living and recreating in lion country, check out our Living with Mountain Lions brochure, which can be found at regional Fish and Game offices or online at the link below. You can also read Jenny Jackson's story if you want to learn more. Okay, one last major story from this week. If you're a bit of a deer and elk nerd and are looking for a new series to binge, we got you covered. It's been a milestone week for Idaho Fish and Game media channels this week. First, the Hook and Bulletin celebrating its 50th episode, and now our State of Deer and Elk series swells to 12 episodes, highlighting some of the most fundamental concepts associated with managing and hunting our state's deer and elk. And if you're a bit of a deer and elk biology nerd, this series is right up your alley. If you've ever thought, why does Fish and Game do this and not do that? Add whatever your idea of what this and that is. Fish and Game's State of Deer and Elk webpage probably has the answer. This 12-part video series has been 3 years in the making. It started back in 2022 as a way to give hunters an opportunity to see how biologists gather data, use it in their management decisions, and how they blend hunters' preferences into the mix when proposing hunting seasons. There is a ton of information, but if you're curious why Idaho's deer and elk hunting looks the way it does, or how Fish and Game manages everything from fawn monitoring to managing trophy elk hunts, get comfy, grab your favorite beverage, and head to the State of Deer and Elk webpage. Last week, we rolled out 2 new episodes, Trophy Management and Antlerless Management, which you can now watch or listen to on our YouTube page. And if you want to provide comments on big game season setting mentioned earlier, but aren't exactly sure how that process works, guess what? We got an episode on that too. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you're first in line when new episodes, and podcasts for that matter, roll out. And with that, it's time for the Rapid Fire Bulletin. After March 5th, customers will no longer be able to opt into Idaho Fish and Game's Price Lock program by purchasing a 3-year license or by purchasing a lifetime certificate. There will be no change for any customer that is currently in the Price Lock program, but no new customers will be able to opt into the program after March 5th. Additionally, any Idaho resident who purchases a 3-year license or lifetime license certificate on or before March 5th, 2025, becomes eligible for the Price Lock discount for the remaining term of the order, assuming the customer continues to purchase a license for each consecutive year. The Idaho Fish and Game Citizen Shooting Range Advisory Committee will hold its 3rd meeting on February 13th at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at Fish and Game's headquarters building at 600 South Walnut Street in Boise. The meeting will be streamed live via Zoom. However, members of the public in attendance or online can observe the meeting, but there will be no opportunities for public comment or interaction with the committee during the meeting. The Magic Valley region will be offering at least 2 instructor-led hunter education classes in February and March. An instructor-led class will be held in Rupert at the Rupert Fire Station between March 19th and the 22nd. A second hunter education day camp will be offered during spring break week in Jerome at the Magic Valley Regional Office in the Hunter Ed classroom. The instructor-led class will be held on March 26th and 27th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Over 70 young anglers braved the winter weather at the 32nd Annual Kids Ice Fishing Derby held at Hyde Pond on Saturday, February 1st. While most participants were from Lemhi and Custer counties, kids from all across southeastern Idaho participated. Although the wind tested their patience, the kids were persistent and caught numerous fish and had a great time on the sledding hill. This year, 3 lucky kiddos caught a tagged fish during the derby. Besides the grand prizes and cash for tagged fish, every child went home with a gift bag donated by Idaho Fish and Game and the Salmon Chalice National Forest. Okay, that's it for this week's stories. It's time for our question of the week. This week's question comes to us from Dave T. Dave asks, is it legal to remove sturgeon from the water when ice fishing? First off, shout out to our enforcement folks, particularly Joey Ishida, for helping me out with this one. So when fishing on public waters, sturgeon must not be removed from the water, even when ice fishing. But owners of legally permitted private ponds can set their own rules on limits and allowable fish handling. That means public fishing rules do not apply to private waters that may contain sturgeon. Sturgeon lack a rigid skeleton, and removing them from the water can damage their internal organs. Sturgeon live a very long time, so Idaho fishing rules are set up to minimize fishing-related injury to these unique dinosaur fish. Hope this helps. Hey, that's all the news we have for this week, folks. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin, our 50th episode. If there's something on your mind, or if you got a question related to Fish and Game matters, please drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. We got some really exciting episodes coming up, particularly some interviews with some of our staff, including our very own director. So if you guys got some ideas, things you want to learn about or hear about, or people you want to hear from, let us know. Send us an email. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you next week.